Hello, geography students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 19, Section 3, Central Asia Today. And we're going to talk about some of these nations. And I realize we've talked a little bit about Afghanistan before, but we're going to kind of go back to this. Afghanistan is a nation that has a rich history dating back to the Bronze Age. And during its past, this region has been part of the Persian Empire, part of the British Empire, but it's also been kind of a battlefield for a number of years. And going back to the 20th century, we have kind of the start of a lot of misery that's going to happen in this region. Starting on December 25th, 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. And part of this was in order to aid the communist government that was kind of forming there. This was the start of a war that would last until 1989 when the Soviets eventually left. But it was 10 years of awfulness in this part of the world. And unfortunately for um, the peoples that were living there, it's just the beginning of a lot of misery that's going to be suffered here. Anyway, once the Soviets left, many of the factions were struggling for power in Afghanistan. And as a result, a civil war broke out, lasting from 1989 to 2001. So, just in that little span, you have about 22 years of warfare, not to mention what's going to happen next. So in the mid 1990s, the Taliban, which was a radical or is a radical Muslim group, rose to power and they took control of most of the country, including the capital of Kabul. Anyway, the Taliban initiated a lot of harsh laws based on strict interpretation of Islamic teachings. And one of the things that they started doing is forcing women to wear these veils. If you take a look at the picture to the right, these women are wearing what we call a burqa. And a burqa is a veil that really covers a woman basically from head to toe. About the only thing that is exposed are her hands. Women who were outside of the home without their burqa could be subject to all sorts of abuse. So it's kind of miserable, let alone the fact that women were not allowed to go to school. The Taliban government also banned music and dancing, even of traditional music and dancing, and not necessarily music that's coming in from the West or the United States. In 2001, the Taliban and Al Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was linked to the September 11th terroristic attacks on New York and Washington, D.C. And as a result, the U.S. and British forces attacked Afghanistan, targeting the Taliban and Al Qaeda targets. Eventually, in due time, the Taliban government would be toppled, but it didn't necessarily eliminate the Taliban. The Taliban is still in Afghanistan to this day, and it is dictating some of the policies that are happening in different regions of that country. Currently, the Afghan government has a new constitution. Men and women aged 18 and older can vote for president and members of the National Assembly, but there are still political factions, and the Taliban has not been destroyed. Kazakhstan was first part of Central Asia to be conquered by the Russians, and it still has a close relationship to the Russian government to this day. About a third of the population are ethnic Russians who moved there. Kazakh and Russians are both the official languages of this region, and today's Kazakhstan economy has steadily been growing due to a lot of valuable reserves of oil. Kazakhstan has one of the more stable governments within Central Asia. The country is a democratic republic with an elected president and parliament. And in 1989 or 1998, excuse me, they moved their capital from Almaty to Astana to be closer to Russia. The word Kyrgyz. We're going to talk about the Kyrgyzstans. This means 40 clans. And a clan is basically a group of people. Typically, they're related to one another, but clan membership is certainly an important part of Kyrgyzstan's social, political, and economic life. Most people in Kyrgyzstan are farmers, and farming is the most important industry. The fertile soil allows for a mix of irrigated and dry land farming. That's farming without irrigation. And the standard of living, unfortunately, is low, but tourism is helping grow the economy. Back in 2005, there was an uprising known as the Tulip Revolution. This began over issues of political corruption brewing between the Russian involvement in the government. Tajikistan, in the mid 1990s, the country's communist government fought against a group of reformers who were calling for democratic reforms. Others were calling for a government that was ruled by Islamic law, kind of like what you would see maybe in Iran. In 1997, the group came together and signed a peace agreement, and today Tajikistan is a republic with an elected president. Tajikistan still relies on cotton farming, and only 5 to 6% of the country's land is arable, meaning that it is suitable for farming. So there's some concerns about the overuse of land, perhaps the use of pesticides and such within this region. Turkmenistan is a dictatorship. Its president holds power for life, making it one of the most repressive nations within Central Asia. The government supports Islam, but has ordered schools to teach Islamic principles. But the government doesn't want Islam to become a political movement. The economy is based on gas, oil, cotton, and farmers rely on irrigation to raise their crops. The longest irrigation system channel in the world is actually within Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan has the lowest life expectancy in Central Asia at only 67 years of age. Uzbekistan. This nation has the largest population in Central Asia. Uh, the two largest cities in this region are Bukhara and Samarkand, which were cities that go back to the time of the Silk Road. Uzbekistan is a presidential constitutional republic, making the president both the head of state and the head of the government. And since 2016, the new president has made reforms, but there's still issues of violations of human rights. The whole concept of involuntary servitude, which is kind of like slavery. The government closely controls the economy, which is based on oil, gold, and cotton. Environment. There is the shrinking of the Aral Sea that has caused wind blowing dust and salt and pesticides from the dry seabed, causing a lot of environmental issues. People who once made their living fishing are now miles away from waters that actually do have fish in them. During the Soviet era, the government also tested nuclear bombs within Central Asia. If you take a look at the map on the bottom right hand side, there's a couple areas where you can see where the government actually tested in and near around the Caspian Sea and further to the east. Today, there are a lot of people that suffer from poor health as a result of exposure to radiation that was left over from these tests. There's also the overuse of chemicals to increase crop production, and that's actually hurt crop production and the economy in the long run. The economy for years, Central Asia has been reliant upon one crop, and that's cotton. But with limited suitable farmland available, it's hurt the economy. Some countries have oil and gas reserves, but they have outdated equipment and they lack funds and poor transportation systems to move these crops and to move the products that they might have. When you talk about politics, political stability is a huge challenge here. People who are unhappy with their governments at times have turned to violence and protest. Thank you very much.